Hey everybody. I was told by a remote student that several of you felt like you didn't have enough instruction, and I'm really sorry about that. I probably should have made a video earlier. And I'll try to do this. I can try to do this if this helps. So you guys really need to let me know if this helps you or not. The last 2 weeks have been. I'll tell you kind of what I wrote back to that student. The last 2 weeks have been kind of crazy with NWEAs interrupting us every day, with some people gone, some people not. And then this week has been, I've been trying to do the grading because your grade books got all messed up. And that's not your fault. It's not even really my fault. It's just kind of, it happened, and it's just the two systems weren't talking to each other. So I'm fixing the problem now. It's taking a lot of effort, I guess, and time for me to fix it. But once it's fixed, it's going to be much easier. So I've been working on that for you guys. So I apologize that the weaving thing has not started out so great for you guys, but I know that I think everyone but maybe 3 or 4 people have picked up their supplies, so that's awesome that I know that most of you guys have your supplies. If you still don't have them, you need to reach out to me and just send me an email at this point, because that is the fastest way for me to make up a bag. Now, if any of you guys run out of things, you need to tell me that too, and I can, get you a little Ziploc bag together or whatever, and we'll leave that for you, okay? So I figured I'd show you this stuff right here. This is called crochet thread, and this is what we're using as the warp string. So hopefully in your bags you saw this little tiny bundle that what I did was wrap it around my hand a bazillion times, and it should be long enough because I measured it out, and then it's wrapped up like this. So it's thicker than this, but just to give you a visual, that is the kind of thread that you should use. Now, if I happen to forget it in your bag, use the thinnest yarn you can, but you can use something a bit thicker. So I have one strung up right here that's using much thicker stuff, and you can do that. It's fine. It gives you a little bit different of look, but not too much. Okay, so feel free throughout this video to pause it where you need to pause it, rewind where you need to rewind, and fast forward what you don't need to know. Okay, I'll try to kind of pause visually in the middle so you can see. So back up a little bit. So this is your little weaving loom that you have. Okay, if you are making your own, because there's a few people that are, try to give yourself 20 slots, because that way you're all doing about the same size of a piece. If you only do like 5, you're going to finish really, really fast, and it won't give you enough time to really practice the techniques. Okay, so when you start, you're going to leave yourself a tail about halfway or a little bit more. A little bit more is probably better. And then when you string it, you do want to try to keep it pretty tight. Okay, right here. You want a little bit of leeway here. And you're going to wrap it around the board, and you go into the next slot. Okay, so you're wrapping all the way around like this. Show you closer. All right, so we're going into each one, and you're going to try to pull them down, because if you don't pull them down, you're going to end up with some looser strings than others. Now, this thread is pretty tough thread, so it shouldn't break on you, although I have had some students break already. So if you do break it, even if you're in the middle of your weaving, all you're going to do is kind of try to patch it. And do a square knot. That will keep it as tight as possible, and not let those knots come out. If you need help doing a square knot, I can show you, or you can kind of look up directions, but that's the kind of knot you should do. Okay, so you go down each one, keeping it tight. Now you have this. Now you have on the back side 2 strings, okay? Now you're gonna take those 2 strings and you're gonna tie them together diagonally and try to keep it as much in the middle as you can. It's just gonna help you later on. So if you can just trust me on that one. Of course, I left that first one a little bit short. So I'm just gonna tie it, and you try to keep it as close to the board as you can. If you have trouble or you leave it a little bit too loose, like that should be okay. If it's a little too loose and starts causing problems, like if this part on the front starts pulling out because that's too loose, just take a piece of masking tape. And what I would do with that, you guys all should have some masking tape. If you have masking tape, if you just like on your shirt or your pants, your jeans, anything that's cotton, if you just put it on there, you'll get some lint. It's lovely. Will it focus? You'll get some lint on it, and that will just keep it from from being too sticky. So I would just take this and I might just kind of try to turn it a little bit like that and put that tape down, or pull it to the side, whatever. Okay, so I just taped it kind of to the side to keep that taut. All right, so now I can kind of set that aside for a second. I kind of jumped to my whole weaving part because I wanted to start with that piece, so you can do that. But what you really needed to be starting with is your plan. Okay, so you have to pick a space that you are thinking about. And so for me, one of my favorite places to be is in my garden. I have this old carport frame, and I have been growing this grapevine for probably, I think it's about 13 years old. And so it comes up over the frame and is starting to go on the other side down. And then I have another one starting growing, but it's only like 3 or 4 years old, so it's not up very far. But it's beautiful, and the grapes just grow down, and I've been getting grapes for like 3 or 4 years now, and it's super cool. And I have a bench and some chairs underneath there, and I like sitting on the bench, and it's a calming spot for me. And when I look out of the spot, I can see my other new garden that I built this year. So it kind of looks like this. Okay, so this is a quick sketch. Okay, so I have down here, like, it's kind of like dirt and leaves, and I kind of took out the fact that there's definitely chairs here and lots of stuff on the ground, but for me it's dirt, it's earth, it can be brown, I don't care. So I just kind of colored this brown. Okay, and then I have the carport lines, I feel like are really a part of this, so I put the carport lines in there kind of faintly with I think I just used a regular pencil. And then I have the vines coming up on either side. That one's really not that tall, but oh no, that is that. I'm looking backwards. This one's not very tall. And then this is the side that comes up, and you can see I squiggled some little grapes, right? So there's my purple. And then in the background, there's mostly grass. There's lots of ferns and stuff. And I know that there's things, but it's basically going this direction. It's flat. It's the flat earth part. And then I have the woods. There's like woods back here. There's trees, and they're not quite this straight along, but I just needed that section, right? So I just kind of scribbled that part right there. And then I can see sky above it also. And then that grapevine is just coming over, and the grapes I think are really important to make it a grapevine, right? So this was kind of my first sketch, thinking about what does it look like and how can I simplify it? Because if you're doing a weaving and you want to do a picture, which you don't have to do a picture, but if I wanted to do a picture, I need to simplify it as much as I can. I want the essence of the grapevine, the colors that I see when I'm out there. So those kind of deep purples, the different variations of green that I see, maybe some brown because I see that dark brown on the vines. And then, you know, against maybe the contrast of using the, you know, kind of silvery gray for the actual carport piece. So I'm thinking about the colors. So what I started to do then is thinking about, well, this is very complicated for a weaving. Weavings generally go left to right, right to left, right. They just go back and forth horizontally. So for me, I'm like, that's a lot of switching of colors, especially when I get up here. How am I going to do that? And so I started thinking about some of those examples I showed you guys in the slideshow of how they had those tree trunks that were really popping off the page that probably were actually sticks that were wrapped. And I started thinking, well, maybe I could do something like that with the vine itself and actually put all the vine texture on top of it. So I thought that might be something fun to try. So I simplified this even more just to think of the landscape and what the landscape is. And I kind of wish I didn't draw the carport lines. But if you picture this in the background, I have just the colors and started thinking a little bit more. There is a path right here, so maybe I should keep that brown. There's also a path that goes back to the other garden spot, and maybe that garden spot should be brown, and then have some green. So if I just look at these shapes, look at this brown as a shape, look at this green as two shapes right here, look at this as different shapes, this section maybe a different color green, so I can make that a different texture, and then the blue. So this is the kind of sketch that I want you guys to do. It's quick, it's fast, and it's planning out your colors, okay? And you don't have to plan 2 steps like this at all, but if you want to picture, it's sometimes more helpful to think about that. But you don't have to have a picture at all, okay? You do not have to do a landscape. You can simply think about kind of break it down even more, and I could just do like brown, green, and blue, but maybe I do a section of like the top that has like the vines in it and has the grapes in it. So I'm gonna try to do this plan, and I'll show you guys as I go through it. I'm not gonna do the whole thing because I don't have enough time to film that whole video, but I'll keep showing you guys throughout. So I want to show you how to get started. So make sure you've done the planning, and I will take everything that you have to give. So just please make sure you work in order. So if you're behind, and I know a lot of you guys are behind, and it's okay, but because you're behind, don't skip things. Don't skip the planning. If you skip the planning, I can't ever grade it after you do the project. So always, if you're behind, start with the planning piece, do the planning, then you do the project, then you do the reflection. And I think all of my projects are gonna go that way. So planning, project, reflection, planning, project, reflection, okay? Okay, so I'm all set up here with my weaving, and I'm going to show you a couple things to get you guys started. The first thing is I want to make sure that you guys know how to do the basic weave, and you can call it the basic weave or you can call it a tabby weave. And there is a video that's linked for Google on YouTube if you need to see it, but you can also just watch this. So I'm actually going to double. I probably shouldn't. I'm not going to double. Okay. I'm going to keep my string single. Now, a lot of you guys are going to get a little piece of yarn like this in your bags. What I would suggest is find the end that's on the outside and unravel it. And maybe even try to find the hole so you can kind of stick your fingers in it like that. And make sure that you can unravel it and you know how much you have. Okay, and you don't tangle it, so try real hard not to tangle it, but you can weave with pretty short pieces, so you don't have to, you can always cut it off. Okay, so when you first start, you're going to go over, under, and it doesn't really matter which way you start. I started under, and you might need to kind of pinch some of the strands up, your warp. So you're going to pull it and leave yourself with a little tail, okay? And then you're going to push down. We're going to work from the bottom of our weaving to the top, okay? So I just push it down with my fingers. If you have a little comb at home, that will help. A fork will also do it, but I'm just going to use my fingers, okay? And then I'm going to go back, and when I go back the other direction, this one wasn't over. Now I'm going to go under. So I do the opposite. This again is just your basic weave. So it does take a little bit of time, especially at the beginning, to get going. Once you have a little thick layer here, your strands will come off the board a little bit more, and it will be easier. Plus you'll get used to it, so it'll get a little easier. So when you pull through, what I want you to do is put your finger on that corner and pull. And I'm gonna kind of keep up here in the middle so I can pull this so it's like a diagonal line, and I can pull it straight, and then I'm gonna pull it down. But you got to keep your finger over here. That's the only way you have any hope of not pulling all your strings in like this. You don't want your weaving to go in. You want to try to keep nice straight sides. So then I'm gonna push down, okay? And you know, I can see there's a little puckering, so I could hold that again and just like tug a little bit, pull it that way, okay? The other thing you guys can do is you all should have a ruler, and you get to see my messy pink ruler. You all have a ruler. You can use this ruler to help you. It will kind of act as a beater or a heddle. There are two different terms there for you, but I'm going to start the next way. So I'm going to actually weave this in. Now this is also, if you had a stick or something else that you wanted to put in, you can weave anything into your piece that you want. So this will help you with weaving every other, but you can see you can use this to press down. So that's the act of using it as a beater, but I can use it as a heddle by leaving it up here. You can put it at the top, or you can put it kind of in the middle. And what that does is it raises those strings a little bit. Now yours are pretty thin, the rulers that I gave you, most of them. So you might have to bend it up. Hopefully you can see that. And when you bend it up, you can take that needle and just go right through all of them. And that makes it so much easier. But you can do that every other one. So I'm going to pull it through. And what I've told many students is that only work with the length of yarn that doesn't annoy you. So if it annoys you to have this much string to pull through, work with shorter pieces. You're just going to have a little bit more cleanup at the end to tie all the strings in, but it's not wrong, okay? So I use that as a beater to go down, and I can go again, okay? Now, you probably all should start with like 2, 3, or 4 rows at the bottom that are just that basic weaving. I think it's a good place to start, and even if you're gonna, pretty much no matter what you're gonna do after that, it gives you a good kind of outline or base to your work. Now this, I gotta pull it aside so it doesn't get tangled. Okay, and after this one, I'm gonna show you, I think I just dipped it in my coffee. Cool, a little coffee stain. I'm going to switch and do something a little bit different to show you guys after this. But see, I can push that right down.
The young lady who is here to pay class dues, please report. Thank you, you're here.
All right, now I'm going to cut that off, okay? If I'm going to switch colors, or I'm going to do a different technique and it doesn't necessarily take the same way of starting, then I'm just going to cut that off. I'm going to deal with these little strings later, so I'm going to leave them there for now. When it gets a little bit thicker up here, I can tuck those back underneath and get rid of them. I want to show you something that I thought was really cool, way to change colors. So So I'm actually going to double this string up on my needle. Okay, and I'm going to weave this probably just one row because I have 4 going right there. So this one wasn't over. Now I'm going to go under. Oh, I forgot to use that, and that's so much easier. So I know I just made more strings for myself, but that's okay. I'm gonna fix them after. Okay. So leave them a couple inches because it's easier to tie them that way. So I'm only going to be able to do this for a few more minutes for this video, but I will continue to take videos each day of the process of the progress of this piece, so you guys can check it out, and I'll do different techniques for you guys to see. And hopefully this helps, and if you guys need any other instructions, please just reach out and tell me, okay? So this technique, that what I'm going to do, I did 2 rows of it, and I could do more, but I really don't need that much of this. And actually I want to start not using all of them because I didn't really plan to have the brown too far. So there's 2 things I'm going to do right here. One is I'm going to take and I'm going to do 2 different strands now. So I'm actually going to cut one of these. Now try to just hang on and follow me here because I'm just kind of saving myself a little bit of a struggle. And I'm going to add in, I'm going to take this right off my needle. So, and I'm not going to go out to this one right here. So actually I'm going to end up going, I'm going to go right underneath that one also. And I'm going to take this other yarn that I have, and I'm still going to weave with 2 strands. And if you want to see someone else do this too, there is a video on YouTube on my playlist that is called Color Graduation. Okay, and this is going to slowly change my color from one color to, from the darker color to this one, and then I'm going to go to this color. Okay, so I'm going to tuck that one underneath because I don't need this string. I'm going to exclude actually these 2. So if you can tell, I'm going to put this back underneath this one. But I'm going to exclude because I want to make just a shape here that goes in. So I'm going to just put it through here so you can kind of see what that's going to look like. Okay, so let me just organize that a little bit. This one's underneath. So these are all underneath. So I started, basically, I just kept this from having myself have another one. So when I weave with this, I'm going to be slowly changing the color. This is my thing again. Yep. So I'm not going under that one. I'm just going over these. And I'm going to go over, and then I'm actually going to go under both of these. Now, there's 2 things that I'm doing right here, okay? And you guys don't have to do both of these things at the same time, okay? So one thing I'm doing is I'm starting to go in. I want my path to be a little bit smaller, okay? That's one of the things I'm doing. So if you look over here, you can see my warp thread go down lower and then down a little bit less lower, and then it doesn't go as much, right? So I've gone to about here, and I'm going to go back. Now this is actually becomes an under right there. Over. Under. So the two things that I'm doing is, one, I'm doing the graduation of color, which you don't have to do, but you can try if you want to. And I'm also doing just a shape. So I think you'll see it a little bit better once I come back through this way, because this side's a little messed up because of the, whoop. Just pull it through. There we go. So this one just is a little bit more messy because of all those strands. So if you see over here, I've only gone to here. Now I'm going to keep going a little bit straight up because I don't have that many warp strings. So now this one, I'm going to go again just with this color. Oh, here we go. And I'm just going through these ones. Go through. And I don't really care if they flip-flop like that. I think it'll actually look nice. So I'm not going to worry about those strands being tight. But if you look, if I'm really pressing down, I don't want to see my warp threads. So I'm going to keep going with that same amount of string. So I'm going to make sure that I wrap around this one, because if I don't, it's going to get shorter, right? And I don't want it to get shorter yet. So I'm going to make sure I wrap around that one and do the opposite. If you don't do the opposite, you're going to end up taking out what you just did. And yep, that one. See how cool that is? I keep pressing down. So I really dig the color graduation, especially with so many of my students wanting to like make an actual landscape picture. I think that this will help you to look a little bit more realistic when you do colors. Although I definitely realize I may not have given you all of the colors that you need to do stuff like this. So you'll just have to let me know if you need more. I did make a knot. Did I make a knot? All right. So there is a way. What I'm going to have to do is, when I go back to this next section, when I go back to fill this stuff in with green, I am going to have to go and do some what's called weft interlocking, and you can look up that video if you need to know right away. You can go back and wrap your weft yarn through one of that next warp string to make sure that there's not a slit right there, because I don't need a slit right there. So I think I'm going to go and switch out. And so the idea with this switching out the colors, and actually I think I'm going to go just a couple ways in. Let me do just a couple. I can probably do it without the needle. That thing is just messing me up right now. So I'm going to go to there and I'm going to cut this dark brown one off. Leave a little tail. Okay, I'm just going to tie this on here because I want them to both go back. And I know I'm going to have to fix it later, probably. But I'm going to tie it kind of loose just to help myself out because I want that to get tucked in underneath. So I'm going to do nice way to hide it, right? So that's going to be underneath now with that, and I'm going to make sure these are the same length so I don't annoy myself. All right. Okay, toss that over there. Now I got those strings and I took this one out. Okay, so the idea with this weft, or not weft, sorry. The idea with this color graduation is that you go from 2 strands of the same color to 1 strand of the dark color, 1 strand of the other light color. And then you do that for a little bit and then you switch to 2 of the other color. And you can do that for several colors and you can make a larger color graduation if you want, which is what I plan to do. I'm going to add in this color too so it gets a little bit lighter. So now I should be able to, that should be over. You'll be able to see that. Now I think I also need to, because I'm trying to do my shape also, I need to go a little bit smaller now. So I'm not going to go under that string anymore. I'm going to just go back from here to make that a little bit smaller. So there's an under. And I hope that you can see that it gets a little bit easier as I go. I'm actually now, instead of having to pick up, which is probably the hard part for many of you, I don't have to pick up anymore. I have to push down, which is a little easier. So make sure I don't pull too tight because you want to keep them straight. I'm going to really compress that down. Okay. Going 2 strands at a time definitely leaves a little bit more. So I was going to this one before, and now I want to just wrap around here. To this one. I did have to pick that one up. Okay, check that, make sure I'm doing the right one. Back this way. You can also use the needle to press down if you want to. I think I'm going to do at least one more and then I'm going to switch to another color even. My best advice I can give you guys as you start doing this is choose one method at a time, okay? So you can kind of look at the picture that I've given you of all of the different techniques, decide on which ones you like the looks of. I don't really think, I think this color graduation is probably one of the most difficult just because you have to pay attention a little bit. There's a little bit of switching, and that might be a little too much for some people. They're really all about the same effort level, I think. I know that's an art teacher saying that. So maybe some are harder than others, and I don't know. You guys will have to tell me if you think some are harder than others. I know the loops kind of take people aback for a little bit. So I better go in again. So you know what, I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna go back underneath this one on purpose so I don't actually include that one. So I am doing opposites, it's just that first one I skipped because I want to make it shorter. See, so that shape goes in a little bit. So what this is going to do, because I'm working with a shape, you will automatically have to do some warp interlocking after to fill in these sections over here and to make sure that your weaving is all connected. So that is something that I will do in the next video to show you how we're going to fill in these sections. But this is definitely somewhere that you guys can start, and you do not need to do this color mixing. If you don't want to, you can simply just do this all with one color. You can do it with one strand instead of two. You can do it with thicker yarn. So you can see that right here, I'm starting to do what this is right here, this little path, this little area. And I think what I'll do at this point is I'm going to go back in and I'm actually going to do my whole row. So I have this row drawn right here. That is my path. And I'm going to just fill in, and I'm going to start right over here. Now when I start over here, I need to make sure that I'm keeping up with my pattern. So the last one that I did, this is under, that's over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. So I'm going to start under right here and go right on top of this. Okay. And I'm just going to keep it, I think, single stranded for this one. And I'm just going to do a couple strands. So I'm just going to cut off a small piece. And I said under, over, over. Did I do it right? I did it wrong. Over. There we go. Ooh. So again, I'm going to come out. I'm going to leave my tail there so I can take care of that later. And I am going to kind of try to keep this straight across. And once again, I'm going to make sure that I kind of hold that piece, pull it across, push it down. Now you can do something like that. If I didn't want this to be straight, you can do some funky things if you want, especially with this one. I can leave it a little bit more organic if I want. I don't have to keep it completely straight across because I know what I'm going to do. Now with this plan, now I don't want the path too thick, but I think I'll go probably one more. But this part, if I don't want it to be straight across, I'm going to probably take in here, and what I'm going to do, I'll tell you, but I can't show you right in this video, but what I'm going to do is something like this. So these are called raya knots, or there's a video that calls them, it says textured knots or something like that, but this is actually pretty simple. But it allows you to be a little bit more organic and to fill this stuff in. I am going to want to, and actually, you know what, I'm probably not going to go back and backfill it. I might do it on one side and not on the other, just to show you guys how to backfill it and do the warp interlocking here. But I could just take that area and fill it with this stuff, and that it would still be kept together, because this is not a big difference. I mean, a big distance is what I meant to say. This is not a big distance, so I probably could fill that all with Ryan knots if I wanted to, and even cut this real short to be a short texture. So these are just knots that go around 2 strings, and I used multiple colors at the same time to do it. Okay, and this is the same. These are Ryan knots also, but they're loops, or you can do them that way, but they're kind of known as the same thing. All right, but this is the warp interlocking right here, so you can tell this is all one piece. There's no slit anywhere in here, but that's because when I went back in with this other color, I went and interlocked around the warp string. So there's 2 strings right here on the same warp string of the 2 different colors, and that's how you kind of get this little graduated feeling. So there's a bunch of different things to do. What you guys need to try to do, especially because you're at home and you're not in the classroom, is you need to try not to get overwhelmed by the different options. You just need to try one thing at a time. Okay, and plan first, and even use that sketch. You could write in here which types of techniques you want to do if you want, and that might kind of keep you on track. Or just decide one at a time. Start with something and then make your decisions based on how the first one went and what you were able to do. All right? Good luck.